An archangel's hands close around another angel's wing and rip. The sound is not thunder. It's not holy fire. It's the wet, sickening tear of divine flesh and sinew, a noise that shouldn't exist inside creation. This is Gabriel, and the being he's tearing apart, Samael, the Accuser, heaven's own divine prosecutor, once wore 12 wings made of living shadow and sharpened obsidian. By the time Gabriel is finished, those wings will be gone, and the only place they'll fit is inside Samael's own screaming mouth. This is what the ancient Midrash records. Not a gentle miracle, a celestial war crime. And it all happened because of one mortal child, one name, Moses. Chapter 1. The Divine Instruments. Before we talk about the punishment, we need to understand what these two beings actually were. Gabriel wasn't a man with feathered wings and a pleasant face. He was a figure of blinding geometric light, heaven's scalpel, a presence so pure it could burn mortal eyes from their sockets just by existing near them. He was built to deliver divine will, precise, unyielding, mercy given form. And then there was Samael. His name alone whispers of venom. In the ancient texts, he is the Accuser, not a demon, not a villain, but a function, a necessary horror built into the architecture of creation itself. His form was a chilling inversion of a seraph, crowned with 12 wings that were not feathered, but made of living shadow and sharpened obsidian. When they moved, they didn't flutter. They ground, like glass on stone. To stand in Samael's presence was to feel the air grow thin, your bones grow cold, and the weight of every sin you'd ever committed pressed down on your chest like a millstone. He was not evil, he was judgment. And judgment, in this story, was about to make a very, very grave mistake. But here's the part that most people miss when they hear this story. The real horror isn't the wing tearing. It's why Gabriel had to be there at all. Chapter 2. A Prophecy of Ash. In the mortal realm, the Pharaoh of Egypt was drowning in a nightmare. A Hebrew child, his own soothsayers told him, would rise to shatter his empire. His solution was brutal and simple. Every newborn Hebrew boy was to be fed to the Nile. But one child survived, pulled from the reeds, raised inside the very palace he was destined to destroy. Moses. The Midrash records what happened next. The toddler Moses, barely able to walk, reached up, lifted the great crown from Pharaoh's head, and placed it on his own. The court went silent. Then it erupted. To Pharaoh's paranoid advisors, this was not a child playing. This was the prophecy made flesh. They called for the boy's execution on the spot, but a test was proposed. One designed to look like mercy, but built like a trap. 2 bowls were placed before the infant, one filled with gleaming gold, the other with red-hot glowing coals. The logic was cruel and simple. If the child reached for the gold, he was conscious, ambitious. He was the prophecy, he would die. If he reached for the coals, pure, mindless innocence, he would live. The problem? Moses was already reaching for the gold, and heaven had sent a witness. Samael did not arrive in fire and glory. He seeped into the room, invisible to human eyes, a physical pressure of dread that made every torch flicker and every shadow grow teeth. He was the cosmic prosecutor, and this was exactly the kind of case he existed for. A child, a crown, an empire's fear. He watched as the tiny hand stretched toward the gold, and his entire being vibrated with anticipation. The sweet scent of a soul on the edge of judgment, a sentence about to be delivered, was a feast to him. But Samael was not the only presence in that room. Chapter 3. The Unseen Hand. The moment Moses' fingers were inches from the gold, something intervened. It was not gentle. An invisible force, Gabriel, clamped down on the infant's arm with crushing pressure and wrenched it sideways. The baby's hand was shoved away from the gold and plunged directly into the searing coals. A shriek tore through Pharaoh's court. Moses, on pure infant instinct, brought the burning coal to his mouth. The smell of scorched flesh filled the room. His lips and tongue were instantly blistered, a speech impediment he would carry for the rest of his life. But he was alive. To the court, an innocent child, drawn mindlessly to the flame. To Samael, a theft. His judgment had been stolen, his sentence corrupted. And from somewhere deep in the fabric of the spiritual world, a sound, inaudible to human ears, but felt in the marrow of every bone in that room, began to rise. Samael was moving, not to observe, to finish the job himself. The unseen war. Gabriel revealed himself, not as light, not as hope. He erupted into reality, a column of silent, white-hot fire, a being of impossible geometry that hurt to look at, planting himself between Samael and the child. The air in the palace crackled, superheated by two archangels in direct opposition. Every human in the room felt a sudden, crippling wave of nausea and terror, their bodies reacting to something their senses couldn't comprehend. Two archangels, in open conflict, in a mortal palace, over a child's life. This was no longer a test. This was war. Samael came with everything he had. 12 shadow wings unfurled in a hurricane of rage, each edge razor sharp, each movement a sound like grinding obsidian. And Gabriel, no longer the messenger, became the punisher. He drove forward. His hands, forged of starlight and absolute purpose, found the joint of Samael's highest wing, and he pulled. What followed was not holy. It was biological. A wet, shuddering tear of divine flesh and sinew that existed below sound. Something you would feel in your teeth before you heard it with your ears. A scream ripped from Samael's form that echoed through dimensions humans don't have names for. Gabriel did not stop. One by one, he seized each thrashing shadow limb, still writhing, still horribly alive, and ripped it from its socket. Not a battle, a systematic dismantling. Golden ichor sprayed from each wound, sizzling and evaporating before it could touch the mortal floor. 10 wings, 11, 12. And then, in the final, most devastating act, Gabriel gathered the 12 mangled, still twitching wings, pressed them together and drove them into Samael's screaming mouth. The great Accuser was silenced with the very symbols of his own glory. Chapter 4. The Scars of Duty. What remained on that floor was not a fallen angel, it was something worse, a broken one. Samael, once the most feared arbiter in all of creation, lay in the ruins of his own form. 12 gaping wounds weeping divine light onto the palace floor, evaporating into nothing. His voice, his wings, his authority, stripped from him in moments. Not by a demon, by his own brother, by divine command. Gabriel stood over him, not in triumph, but in the cold, hollow stillness of a weapon that had just been used. He had saved Moses. He had obeyed God. Every part of his mission was complete. And yet, the phantom sensation of divine flesh tearing under his hands would never leave him. Samael's screams were now a permanent thread woven into his existence. He had delivered mercy through an act of monstrous violence, and that act, by its very nature, had changed him forever. The line between executioner and monster is drawn in heaven, too, and sometimes it's erased. The Midrash did not record this story to comfort you. It recorded it as a warning, a glimpse into the terrifying engine underneath creation, a cosmos where protection is indistinguishable from punishment, where an angel of mercy can be ordered to commit an act of savage brutality against his own kind, and where the greatest casualty isn't the one who was destroyed, it's the one who did the destroying. There is no good without horror, no salvation without sacrifice. And the beings we call angels, messengers, guardians, divine instruments, are not gentle. They are weapons, and weapons do not choose their targets. So tell me this. When Gabriel tore Samael's wings from his body, was that justice? Or was it the moment heaven revealed what it truly is? Drop your verdict in the comments. Did Gabriel remain an angel after what he did? Or did the act of destroying Samael make him something else entirely? Something darker. And if you want more of these hidden myths, the stories buried because they were too brutal, too complex, too real, subscribe. Because we're just getting started. The shadows have more secrets.